Just take a breath. Feel and see everyone joining us. I'm trusting this little background sound is okay. And feel yourself fully arrive, fully present. I can just feel how good it is to be with everybody. Another minute to be even more present within your own heart. Welcome everyone. The topic today is good grief. Good grief. There's a way to say it where you go, oh, good grief, like Charlie Brown. And there's a way to say it, good grief. And so today I want to talk about how we're probably in a massive grief state, grief phase. And we may not see it, notice it, feel it. But the question I have today is, what if this grief is a good thing? So my name is Dr. Frankie Timmers, and I'm the spiritual director of Center for Spiritual Living Morristown in historic Morristown, New Jersey. And I've been there 27 plus years, and it's a lovely community. And we teach the science of mind, which was founded by Dr. Ernest Holmes. Please check us out on the website www.cslmorristown.org. And if you feel inclined or particularly generous, there's a place for you to give, which we welcome during this challenging time. Please say hi. Hi, everybody. This is going to be rebroadcast as well, so you will have an opportunity to see it again. We will post it on YouTube. Let me know who you are, where you're from, and use those little bubbles on the bottom, whether it's a heart or a thumbs up, or angry, sad, or filled with joy. Let me know whether you relate to what I'm talking about. Say something about it. What is your experience? And do you have any tips for me to make this broadcast even better? So let's talk about grief. Let's talk about grief. So last week I talked about coping with compassion, and it kind of had a double meaning, and I talked about grief, and I keep feeling moved to go even more deep into talking about grief. And I find that it had a double meaning again. The good grief, yes, grief can be good, and the good grief. So that's what I want to talk about. And I have come to a place in my life where I have come to embrace grief, because it has so many messages and so many blessings and so many meanings and so many gifts when we allow it and when we surrender to it. which can be challenging. Most people want to avoid feeling grief because they're afraid that underneath it is a river of pain that will never stop flowing. So grief is connected to change. And I don't know if you've noticed, but everything has changed. Everything has changed. And so much has changed for all of us all of a sudden that we might be in a little bit of shock. I mean, don't you find yourself saying, this got to be a dream. It can't be real. I wake up sometimes in the morning and I think, was that a bad dream? There is so much of it. And so this whole pandemic really, and you probably heard it 100 times in the last few weeks, is about how we must change collectively and individually, and to realize how resistant we are to change. I always use the joke that the only person who likes change is a baby with a dirty diaper. But I think we already know that we have to change. I think we know it for the world. Maybe we don't quite know it yet for ourselves, but individually we must change, and collectively we must change. And so there is this invitation to really take some time and sit still, which many of us are able to do, and think about what wants to change for me and in me, what needs to change. And it could be as little as wanting to be more patient. Well, maybe that's not little for some, but maybe wanting to be more patient, wanting to be more kind, wanting to be more generous, wanting to be less critical, less judgmental, less fearful, wanting to heal from an illness. If you already know that something in you must change, take the time. This is like a retreat. We're all on sabbatical, except those who are on the front lines, which I am so grateful for, and I hold them in my prayers every single day. So if you don't know yet what that is, then I would say listen. Listen more deeply. Sit still long enough and listen more deeply. I love this reading by Brené Brown. I'm a big fan. Brené Brown says, this pandemic experience is a massive experiment in collective vulnerability. We can be our worst selves when we're afraid, or our very best, bravest self. In the context of fear and vulnerability, there is often very little in between, because when we are uncertain and afraid, our default is self-protection. We don't have to be scary when we're scared. Let's choose awkward, brave, and kind. And let's choose each other. Let's choose each other. So I have been in spiritual circles for a while, and I have noticed that grief sometimes is shamed. Sometimes it's called fear. Sometimes it's called negative. And sometimes it's called not very spiritual. By some, and at times. But I have discovered that it is infused with gifts. Some of you know that I have lost 4 siblings out of 9, and 2 of them to suicide. And I have lost my parents and some very, very dear close friends. And those times were incredibly painful and incredibly difficult. But I also found that when I surrendered and just accepted and allowed it, that it was all about love, and that there were so many meaningful gifts. It brought me closer to life. I feel it made me more authentic. It gave me more of a capacity for unconditional love. And the beauty is, I'm still so deeply connected to all of them. So I think about all those gifts, and what comes to mind is the 13th century Persian poet Jalaluddin Rumi, who said these 3 things. He said, grief can be the garden of compassion. If you keep your heart open through everything, your pain can become your greatest ally in your life search for love and wisdom. In your search for love and wisdom. And then, I love this one. Don't run away from grief. O soul, look for the remedy inside the pain, because the rose came from the thorn and the ruby came from a stone. Sometimes things that feel hard have the most soft, tender, gentlest gifts. The most joyful one I read is this one. I saw grief drinking a cup of sorrow and called out. It tastes sweet, does it not? You've caught me, grief answered, and you've ruined my business. You've ruined my business. How can I sell sorrow when you know it is a blessing? So the key then is to find a place of acceptance of what is, as hard as that can be, a place of acceptance of what is, and learn to dance with it, to flow with it. Realize that it is a path, it's a journey, it's not a one-time thing. That's why when we feel grief because of a loss, time doesn't heal the wound, but the distance through time makes it more meaningful, and we have a deeper understanding of the richness of life. And so grief and practicing acceptance and flowing with this means that we have to rely on something deeper within us. We have to rely on something more meaningful. We have to rely on the presence and the power of God, Spirit, truth within us. Hafez, another Sufi poet, but from the 14th century, says, do not surrender your grief so quickly. Let it cut more deeply. Let it ferment and season you, as few human or divine ingredients can. Something is missing in my heart tonight that has made my eyes so soft and my voice so tender and my need of God so absolutely clear. Don't you think that when we suffer, we absolutely need to know that there's more to life, that there's more within us, that there's more available to us to move through it? I love everything Elizabeth Kubler-Ross did when she talked about the 5 stages of grief. When we're in shock, there is the mumble jumble, because it's not a perfect path from one to the other, of denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. David Kessler, who worked very closely with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, recently wrote a book called The 6th Step of Grief, Finding Meaning. If we can find meaning in all this, if we can find meaning when we are grieving, we are finding it because we have a heart. We're not a sociopath or a narcissist or a psychopath. We are human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience, as Teilhard de Chardin said. And we have a heart. We have compassion. We have the capacity to love. We can feel. That's good grief. That is worthy of something to celebrate. And here we are, where many people all over the planet celebrate Palm Sunday, which is about celebration. So how about if we celebrate grief and find deeper meaning in it, a deeper understanding, and allow it to enrich us and broaden us? So talking about feelings is so important. We have so much access to so many, and they're all blessings and gifts. There really are no negative and positive feelings. Feelings just are. We're emotional beings. And so healing is feeling, and feeling is healing. In the Science of Mind teaching, when we talk about healing, we understand that a root word of healing is wholeness, and that our wholeness is already within us. Healing is spirit, God, the universe, revealing itself by means of us. And so it's all about turning to the light within us, to the light of God within us, to return to the light of God within all of us. And this life is just a little blip on the spectrum of the life of our soul. And it's about our evolution. It's about our growth. So, Ernest Holmes, in this beautiful book, The Essential Homes, which we just finished studying, says about grief on page 222. It is human to grieve over the loss of a dear one. We love them and cannot help but miss them. But a true realization of the immortality and continuity of the individual soul will rob our grief of hopelessness. We shall realize that they are in God's keeping and that they are safe. So we shall view eternity from the higher standpoint as a continuity of time, forever and ever expanding, until time as we know it and as we experience it shall be no more. Realizing this, we shall see in everyone a budding genius, a becoming God, an unfolding soul, an eternal destiny. So, the good news is you already are light. Your body is made up of light. Your mind is made up of light. Your heart and your soul is pure light. We just forget. It's always available, this light within. It's always ready to be called on, to be used to serve us. So take time to dwell in the eternal light of your own presence until you feel it, see it, know it, live it, practice it, act on it. One example that I see all over Facebook, and even some of our own people at Center for Spiritual Living Morristown, are making masks and finding patterns for masks and making masks that are easy to put together with a bandana and 2 hair ties. It is so wonderful. It brings so much light to my heart and soul to see people serving and helping. And so take a moment, just a brief moment, and then I'm going to share a really magical mantra that is really powerful. Then I'll talk a little bit about how you can meet us at Center for Spiritual Living Morristown, and then I will close with a spiritual mind treatment, an affirmative prayer to heal ourselves, each other, and the world. So, take a moment, close your eyes, take a deep breath, place one hand on your heart, the other on top of it, and imagine that your heart is filled and overflowing with light. Breathe it in and notice that the out breath has to do something too. So then breathe it out and share it with the world. That your heart's already overflowing with light. You just forgot. You thought it was all darkness. So tune into the light that's ever available. Breathe in. Remember, breathe out and share it. And you know, the more you share, the more you have. You can do this anytime during the day. Remember? So I have a perfect little mantra. Many of you have known this mantra all your life. I knew it in a different language. Many of you were singing it. And so are you ready? All right. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Be sure to use that lovely little mantra. So a couple things that I want to tell you before I do a closing treatment. Check out our website, www.cslmorristown.org. There's a yellow give button on the top. We would love it if you could support us. We understand if you can't, but it would be so great because it will really help us in this time and in our return to our building. You can find us on Meetup, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and we're doing our best to be on there as much as possible. Our email is office@cslmorristown.org. My email is drfrankie@cslmorristown.org. Our phone number is 973-539-3114. We have classes coming up. They're all Zoom. Our beloved Gail Belluardo, licensed practitioner, is teaching a class. And we have a discovery class on the 19th, right after the celebration, which is about anyone interested in becoming a member or just to find out more about our center and our teaching. So let's now close with a healing prayer, an affirmative prayer, a spiritual mind treatment. So close your eyes. If you wish, if you can. If not, just keep them open and take it all in. So right here, right now, I trust and know that life reveals itself in divine perfection, that healing is at hand, not just for ourselves, but for each other and for this entire planet and everything and everyone on it. The call that we are experiencing right now is to be different, to do life differently, to be more conscious, to be more loving, to be more generous, to connect with each other. And right now, there is no social distancing. There's only physical distancing. No big deal. We can still connect with one another in so many glorious and new ways. And those new ways, again, become new blessings as ways to be brothers and sisters on this planet. I know there's a massive healing going on because the wholeness of truth is being revealed by means of each and every one of us. And we open our hearts, our minds, our eyes, our soul to experiencing it, to trusting it, to loving it, and to being blessed by it. With awe and gratitude, I turn this spiritual mind treatment, this prayer, over to the universal law, which knows exactly how to demonstrate it for the highest and best of all. And so it is.